hole somewhere. There's a king brown snake waiting there. There's a king brown snake waiting there.
Hi, I'm Les Stroud, creator of Survivor Man, and welcome to this session of training and tutorial videos from Sony Creative Software. Now, these sessions are designed to show you the techniques and the tools you need to survive your next video editing sessions. The same tools that make Sony Vegas Pro software an integral part of my own production studios. Now, these tutorials are meant to not only help you survive
simple little acts like this that get you in the most trouble.
Your next video edit, but also help you refine your craft.
In another video in this series, we covered the basics of track motion. Although we didn't go through every tool in the track motion dialog box, we explored enough of it to give you a solid grasp on the basics. Hopefully you've spent some time working and experimenting with those basics, and even some of the things we didn't cover specifically. In this video, I'm going to expand upon that discussion and talk about working with track motion in three-dimensional space, where you can create many interesting effects like the slanted video track in my project. As we saw in the track motion basics video, you can use track motion to resize, rotate, and reposition the output of any video track. Click the track motion button for a regular two-dimensional track. With 2D track motion, you can manipulate the track's X and Y coordinates. So when you drag the position box, you can drag only up and down or right and left. Thus, you can move the track's video output up and down, right and left. Drag the position box's rotation curve to rotate the track around its Z-axis. The Z-axis points straight off the computer screen to your nose, so when you rotate around that axis, you see the track rotating either clockwise or counterclockwise, which is essentially just making adjustments to the X and Y coordinates of the position box's corner points. Right-click the position box and choose Restore Box from the menu. This sets the position box back to its default values. While you can accomplish a lot in this 2D space, things get really interesting when you introduce the ability to manipulate the box along the Z-axis too. This enables you to move the box closer or farther away, and as you'll see, it opens up all kinds of creative possibilities. Since by default all tracks come in as two-dimensional, you need to put a track into 3D space before you can start to manipulate it in 3D space. To do so, click the track's track motion button if you don't still have the track motion window open for the track you want to work with. The Composite Mode drop-down list button is currently labeled Source Alpha. The button label changes depending upon the composite mode you choose. In the track motion window, click the Composite Mode drop-down list and choose 3D Source Alpha from the list. Although you don't notice any difference in your video preview window, you do notice changes in the track motion window immediately. The window has several extra views. Instead of the one view of your position box that you have for a 2D track, with a 3D track you have 4 different views. Let's take a look at these and how you can use them to manipulate your track's output in 3D space. As we just discussed with a 2D track, the position box is situated such that the Z-axis points straight out of the screen at your nose. The X-axis goes horizontally and the Y goes vertically. Look at the front view at the far right along the top of the 3D position box. The front view functions in exactly the same way as the position box in a 2D track. Notice that the visible axes in this view are labeled X and Y. So if you want to rotate your track around the Z-axis to start your manipulations, you can use this view to accomplish the task. Let's do that now and see what happens. In the front view panel, point to the rotation circle. Notice that the circle becomes highlighted and a Z appears in the center of the circle to indicate that you're pointing to the Z rotation control. Drag the rotation circle and rotate the box counterclockwise. As you do, notice each of the other views and how they're affected by the adjustments that you're making in the front view. In fact, any adjustment that you make in any view is reflected in every other view. Right-click the position box in the front view and choose Restore Box from the menu. Now look at the left view, which sits in the middle of the 3 views across the top. Here you can see the Z and Y axes, which leaves the X-axis to be the one that points toward your nose. In other words, this view shows your track from its left edge. So this view makes it easy to move your track along the Y and Z axes and rotate it around the X axis. before you manipulate the position box in this view, it might help to zoom in on the view a bit. Point to the position box and roll your mouse wheel back and forth to zoom in and out until you're happy with your zoom level. Point your mouse to a blank space anywhere within the rectangle that represents the edge of the track. When the rectangle becomes highlighted, you can drag it to a new position. Drag it up. As you do, notice the other views and how they react to the move you're making. In the front view, you can see the box moving up. Now reposition the box along the Z-axis. Since the video preview window always shows the Z-axis as pointing straight to your nose, you see the video going away from you as you drag the box to the left, or getting closer as you drag it to the right. In other words, when you move an object along the Z-axis, you move that object, in this case your track, farther away or closer. Now, point to the rotation circle in the left view. It highlights, and the letter X appears in the center. This indicates that you're about to rotate the track around the X-axis. Drag the rotation circle counterclockwise. Remember, you're looking at the position box from the left edge, so you can see that when you rotate it counterclockwise along the X-axis like this, you're essentially tipping the box backward. The perspective view gives you a three-dimensional view of any move you make, and the video preview window shows the result of having tipped the track over along the X-axis. Right-click the left position box and choose Restore Box from the menu. The top view works the same way, but in this case, the position box represents what you'd see if you looked down at the top edge of your track. The visible axes then are the X and Z axes, and the rotation circle revolves around the Y-axis. So use this view to move your track left and right along the X-axis, farther and closer along the Z-axis, or rotate it along the Y-axis. Rotate it counterclockwise now. In the video preview window, you can see that this rotates your track in the same way that a door rotates on its hinges. When you open a door, you rotate it along its Y-axis. Each of these windows is effective and intuitive when you're making the first adjustment to your track. But now that you've made that adjustment, notice that the position boxes can start getting a little cluttered. For instance, you've rotated your track along the Y-axis. The top view is still pretty clean in that you still see the same two axes and one rotation circle. But look at the other three views. They're starting to look a little cluttered. Focus on the left view for a moment. Now that you've rotated your track along the Y-axis, you're no longer looking directly at the left edge in the left view. Instead, you're a bit off axis. And that means that you can now see all three axes and their rotation circles. If you're careful where you point, you can still use the highlighting to identify which rotation circle you have and what axis you'll be rotating around. Zooming into the view can help. In the left view, rotate the position box along the Z-axis. Things are really starting to clutter up now. Remember to zoom into your position box in order to defeat the clutter and get the control you want. Also remember that if the graphical views just get too unwieldy for you, use the controls in the Properties area to make your adjustments. For example, if you want to change the Z orientation of your box, you can, as you just did, use the controls in one of the views, or click the current Z orientation value and enter a new value, or use the slider controls to get what you want. So, now that you know the basics of both 2D and 3D track motion, you'll be able to bring a new, dimension to your projects. Experiment with the tools that we've discussed in this video and the Track Motion Basics video and see what you can come up with. And don't forget that you can really get creative when you use the keyframe controller area at the bottom of the Track Motion window to create motion in both 2D and 3D space. But that's a topic for another video somewhere down the line.
There we go.
Now, I may have to survive out in the wild, but when it comes to meeting my next production deadline, it's Vegas Pro that is my most valuable survival tool. Thanks for watching. Check out more of this series for valuable techniques.